And we'll probably put this up on the website, this recording on the website later if you want to review it at a later time. So I see about 9 guests here, which is great. Thank you for taking the time in your middle of your day to talk to us about our program, the Front-End Web Developer Program. So thank you very much for attending. This is the info session for the Front-End Web Developer Program at BCIT. So hopefully you're in the right spot on here. Before we begin, just land acknowledgement here. So we acknowledge that BCIT campuses are located on the unceded traditional territories of the Coast Salish peoples, including the territories of the Musqueam and the Tswa-Wet'suwet'en and the Squamish nations. And do take a moment to just reflect a little bit when you have a chance of understanding of wherever land you happen to be on, what is the history of that land and who was the original inhabitants, and think about where they came from, and then also how you got there and whatnot like that. So it's just a way to sort of reflect and think about where are these, who were the original places, inhabitants of this, the land we are currently on. Okay, so who are we and who am I and all that stuff. So you will see maybe Bal in the participants list there. He's our program coordinator. So if you do decide to apply, he will be probably your first person of contact. He will help you out with things like, if you have questions in regards to, English requirements, or I'm going through the registration process and I can't figure it out, to, am I actually enrolled? If you want to get confirmation on that, you'll be able to email him, and there's email addresses on the BCIT website for FWD that will direct you, that would be sent to Bal. Of course, the two of us sort of run the program together. He does more of the back end stuff. I sort of run all the courses. Who am I? So I'm the program head. I'm Michael White. I'm this guy right here. So I'm the program head. That just means that I sort of shape the direction. There's the email. Bal just put it in the chat, guys. If you want it, that you can email that address, and you'll get all the information you need. So I help run, sort of design the direction of the program, and sort of quasi-coordinate all the instructors and the direction of the program in general. I also teach a couple of courses in the program as well. And also during the onboarding, if you do have questions that Bal can answer, like maybe it's something technical about one of the programs, one of the courses in the course, and he'll just direct the email to me and I'll answer your questions there too. So whenever you have a question about the program, feel free to send us an email anytime on there. We're all pretty familiar with Zoom nowadays. I think we're pretty good, but if you do have a question, you can throw it in the chat. Now, what I'll probably do is just to keep the presentation going, is we won't ignore your questions, but at the end there'll be a Q&A thing, and we'll go through the chat there, and I'll audibly say out the question and then answer that at the end. So we'll get through all the questions before we leave. If you can't stay to the very end, then you can at least get the recording in a couple of weeks when it gets posted on the website, and you can see your questions being answered there. Or if you don't want to wait 2 weeks, you can send us an email. But if you do put your questions in the chat, we will get to it. We'll just wait till the very end of the presentation to take whatever questions you may have, and we'll answer them right here. And you can do that through the chat. You can also do an audio question if you want to as well. Feel free to do that. Most people don't want to do that, so they would rather just type in the question. But either way is fine. Okay, so with that out of the way, what are we going to talk about? So what's our agenda here? So we'll talk a little bit about the job market and careers. What would you actually be doing if you graduate from this program? And then we'll run an overview of the program, the admissions, and the admissions process if you decide to apply. And we'll do a little Q&A at the end. So we'll definitely get to all your questions. No worries about that. Usually takes about an hour, sometimes a little bit over, depending on how many questions we get. So it all depends on the amount of questions, but usually about an hour, max an hour and a half, this thing. So there you go on that. Okay, so let's talk about our program a little bit. So we have a good satisfaction rate with our graduates. This data, by the way, is 95%. This comes from this website here, which is sort of the BCIT government website, which has the, I'll put a link in the chat here, which does surveys every couple of years, and it'll put it on this website. It's pretty good. It's just not the easiest to find programs with whatever schools. So, but if you want to find our program, it's fairly simple. We're a certificate. So you'd select certificate over here. And then you would select our school, which is BCIT, which is this one. Program area might be a little difficult, but we're in engineering and applied sciences. That's our category of use according to these guys, BC government. And we should plop in there. And you can see all kinds of other programs in there too, right? So it'll be a lot of computing programs in there too. So you always check out other computing programs and see how they relate to ours. And there'll be ours. And then you can get, you can save the PDF, you go to the summary and whatnot, and get all the data in there. Check that out. And you can compare that with other programs, at least the public institutes. You can compare those in there to ours. So we're pretty proud of our record there with that. It's a fun program. The students have a good time and you learn a lot and whatnot on there. If we look here, so we've been around as a front-end web developer program. We've been under that name for 3 years, but before that, we were called the Technical Web Designer Program. We did a name change just because the name was getting out of date. So that original program dates all the way back to about 2009-ish, 2010, 2009. So we've been around for quite a while. And before that, we had another program, which was there for a year or two before that. So in one form or another, we've been around for quite a number of years. So we have graduates sprinkled throughout the Lower Mainland and around the country, and we meet a couple in the US as well. Some of these names you might recognize, some of you may not. Expedia you might recognize. ICBC you probably know if you live in BC. Salesforce you might have heard of. Automatic is the company that does WordPress. So they're the ones that run WordPress. Some of these names, if you're in industry, you might recognize like Bayleaf and maybe Mobify. These are sort of software development houses that sort of work with companies. So grads will either work for like a company like ICBC where they, work on one website for your entire time you're there. So it's just obviously ICBC isn't in the business of making websites for different companies. They have one website, their website, and they have a team of developers that maintain that website. So you'd be part of a large team of developers that would keep maintaining that website. And then there'd be companies like, say, Graphically Speaking, who's sort of like a service bureau. They'll be hired out by companies to build their marketing website. We need, I don't know, Lululemon needs a special marketing website for some special promotion they're doing. So maybe they'll hire Graphically Speaking and they'll build that out. And there's a one-off there. So if you work at a place like that, you'd be building various websites for various different companies on there. So some people prefer the variety of that, and some people prefer the consistency of working on one website for a company kind of thing. So there's no right or wrong there. It just depends on what you would prefer. And then of course there's a whole other subset of grads that end up just working for themselves. And that's definitely a possibility in front-end web development. Nice thing is you can just do it with your laptop and some good connections. Human connections and obviously technical connections with regards to the internet, and off to the races you go. You can start building websites for other companies and work for yourself kind of thing. But most grads kind of want to work somewhere, or some grads go on to further education afterwards as well. So all kinds of avenues after the FWD program. And because it's such a short program at 6 or 7 months, you're not tied up for a couple of years doing a longer term program. So this is just the overall space of software, not sort of, I guess, tech industry in general. So there's a huge sway of areas that you can do as some kind of developer of some kind, or some kind of in computers of some kind. Huge sway of jobs. We're in this full stack developer land here. We're front end web developing, so we're sort of half of that. But there's back end developers, there's front end developers, there's full stack developers. But usually most people gravitate to a front end or back end kind of thing. Very few are sort of full stack, although some are and whatnot. So that's where we are in that sort of grand scheme of things in there. If we look at salaries, now these are salaries that would be after, I would say, 3 to 5 years experience in the industry. Now this data is from 2021, but you can also get the latest version of this data by going. I'll put this website here. I don't think you have to sign up. You used to have to give them you could sign up for free, but it looks like you don't have to. So I'm going to post this in there. But if you do, it should be free because you're like not using it for commercial purposes. Usually they just ask you to pay a fee if you're using it for commercial purposes. But as a student looking for data that's not a commercial purpose, that should be fine. But you can put in like put a web developer, or you can put in front-end web developer. Sometimes if it senior web developer, we'll just go web developer, senior web developer. What does this one say? This one says, oh yeah, they have the 3 different pairs, right? And then you pick a city because that's very dependent, right? Geography is very dependent on salaries. So if you're living in a smaller market, usually salaries are lower as opposed to a larger market. Select a city from the list. Oh, okay. Select a city from the list. So if I do that, okay, so I have to pick one there. So Vancouver, BC. This is very poor UX. There we go. They should just give me a drop-down list, but whatever. So we'll search the salaries. Yeah, so it'll give you the latest, like the 25th, the 50th, the 75th percent. So the top 25, the next 25, and the bottom 25. So probably a little bit of a change there, but not too much. About 5-10% up there, but whatever. So if you so I'd say this is between 3 and 5 years experience in the industry. When you get out, when you graduate and you have no experience, like you're coming from like a totally different career, I don't know, say carpentry or, marketing or some other thing that's totally unrelated to web development. You have no experience and all you have is our certificate. Your salaries will not be this high. It'll be quite a bit lower, but if you stick with it, they can and probably will, as long as you're a good worker and, stick with the career and whatnot and improve your knowledge, they can grow to these levels easily. Yeah. So there we go there. So you can check those out. I put the link in there. What's the difference between web developer and front-end web developer? So no, not much. It kind of depends on the, I guess I should save that to the end, but I'll just quickly, it's so related to this, I'll just answer that right away. But front-end developer, web designer, the kind of, depending on which company you see the job ad for and which marketing person or what person wrote the job ad, it may mean the same thing or there may mean different things to different companies. You kind of have to look at the job description of what the job ad actually says. But I would definitely, if you're looking for jobs, looking for web developer, junior web developer, front-end developer, junior front-end developer, that kind of thing. Look for all those titles on there. And then you have to look at the details of what technical skills are they looking, what do they as the company think a developer is, and they may be totally different from the other company that has web developer as someone totally different. So it kind of depends, but I guess in the grander scheme of things, maybe there's like, maybe a web developer is supposed to do, I don't think there's much difference really. If I was to say a back-end developer to a front-end developer, the back-end developer would be more like they're doing more with databases. They're more dealing with the code that runs in the server. And then the front-end developer is dealing more with code that runs in the browser. So the code that is sort of client or user-facing. So meaning that, the client being this browser is a client, right? So the code that runs in this browser is kind of the code that you would write mainly. Although you will do, as a front-end developer, you do some back-end, and you do have to talk to the back-end through what we call it's called an API, but you have to talk to the back-end and then get the data from the back-end and to display the website on the front end, which is this. And it's called the front end because that's what the users see. It's sort of the stuff that the users see as opposed to the back end, which the users do not see. So those are the difference between the two on there. So if you think you want to do code that sort of that you see, that you more see the output of, and generally more, and you want to deal with like design and layout and code a little bit, then front end's more for you. Yeah, sorry, I could go on. Okay. It's one of, the difference between that. That's a great question because it's very confusing if you're new to the industry. Yeah, so we went to the grad outcomes. I showed you where that was. That's basically that link there. Why BCIT? So we've got lots of schools to choose from, lots of public institutes. You got lots of private schools to choose from. So why choose us? If you're from BC, then you may or may not know that probably has got BCIT. Well, BCIT is the largest technical school in the province. It's probably been around one of the longest. I'm not sure if all the other public ones have been around similar times, but we've been around over 50 years. And it's got a good reputation in the province. People know us. People know the school. People, if you say, "Oh, I went to BCIT," then and they're from BC, they'll probably, "Oh yeah, okay." They may have went there themselves, or some other people may have gone there. So there's good reputation out there for our school. We have a great infrastructure as far as IT is concerned. So depending what intake, regardless if you take the sign up for the in-person or the online version, either way, you have a good IT support. If you're in the in-person one, we have 5 campuses. We're located in the downtown campus, but all the campuses have great IT. They've got computer labs. They've got free Wi-Fi, all that stuff. And plus you'll get Photoshop and Adobe Suite as part of your tuition, and Microsoft Office as part of your tuition, and various IT tools and whatnot and stuff like that to help you with your learning. So great IT support there. As I was saying, we are a public institute, not a private, so we're not profit motivated. So basically, our standards are set by the government, and we have to follow. Basically, our main priority is making sure you have a good education and your skills match what you'll need in industry. We're not here to sort of see how much income we can squeeze out of each student and stuff like that. So that's I'm not saying all private institutes are like that. I'm sure many are not, but definitely our mandate is not that, and definitely our mandate is more to make sure you get a high quality education here. And plus, being public, we're not generally going to go out of business unless the province goes out of business. And if that happens, then we've got bigger problems to worry about. But so generally, we'll probably be here. Whereas a private school, I mean, I've seen it happen. They can just sort of say, well, the owner might say, well, I'm done, I'm tired, and I'm just going to pack it up, or the business isn't working out and I'm just going to shut the doors, and oh, well, too bad if it's the middle of the term, so goodbye, right? And I've seen that happen, and not saying it happens often, but it could happen too. So that's something as well. Okay, so let's talk about our program here. So our front-end web developer program. All right. So it was newly revamped. So we were under a different name before 2021. So you may see, if you go on LinkedIn, you may see grads that took the technical web designer program. It's very similar program, but we restructured it because it'd been around for many years. So if you are familiar with software development or web development, you know that technologies change and directions change. So we kind of did a big revamp in 2021. But the overall outcome of the program remained the same, which is to give you the skills needed to be a front-end web developer after you graduate. So this is 12 years, probably more now, probably like 15 years of successful grads working in this industry. It's 27 weeks. That includes breaks in there. So there are some breaks depending on which intake you take. You either get a summer break or you'll get a Christmas break in there. But it is 27 weeks in total. That includes breaks in there. So relatively short, about half a year in there. Entry level to intermediate, that means you don't need any prior skills. You don't have to take a warm-up course before you take our course. Like some boot camps will say like, oh, yes, we'll train you in 2.5 months, 3 months, but you have to take this prep course before you take this course. No, not here. You just sort of, as long as you can, the main thing, as long as you can sort of turn on a computer, save a file, make a folder kind of thing, we can teach you the rest from the ground up. And if you have more experience, then that's okay too, because if you're more experienced, the programs are, of course, they're structured that there are spaces for more advanced students if they want to do more advanced projects. But you could definitely take it if you have very little to no prior web or software development or even computer, any kind of experience beyond, turning on a computer and saving a file, making a folder kind of thing. Beyond that, we'll teach you the rest. Certificates, you get a full certificate after you graduate. It's a cohort learning. That just means you're with the same group of anywhere between 21 and 30-ish students, depending on the amount of enrollment we get. It won't ever get larger than 35. That'd be like the absolute max, but somewhere in that range would be the intake size. If you're in the in-person, that maxes out at 30 because we don't have physical seats. And then the online one, we can have obviously virtual seats. We could have hundreds, but we can't get that big because it becomes very hard for the student teacher ratio and whatnot. So we never get that large, but in person it's maxed out at 30. So you're with the same group of students over and over again through all the 27 weeks, Monday to Friday kind of thing. So we are quite flexible. We have course outlines, which you can check out on the front end web developer webpage, which you're all here. So you've obviously been here. You've obviously been to this website because you've signed up for the info session, but you can get the general course outlines. I'll go through them in general here, but you can get them through the courses here. You can check those out. But you'll notice that some of the course outlines are kind of broad and generic. We don't say specific technology. Sometimes we'll do, but the reason why we do that is so that we can go in there and change the inner workings, because web development sometimes, framework X goes out of date, so we have to use framework B. And if we put that in the course outline, there's a whole process to get that changed. So if you just say you're going to learn JavaScript frameworks, then we can change those frameworks depending on what whatever the industry is saying is being used, whatever the cool framework is of the day. So we try to keep up to what the current trends are in industry and then work from there. We have quite a varied faculty. So there's myself who's been with this program for many, many years. So I'm the full-time person here. We have 3 full-time people, and then we have about 5 or 6 contract instructors who also work in industry and come in and do a few courses with us as well. So we have a nice mix of sort of professional full-time teachers who are really good at education, but also good at the technology. And then we have people who are coming in from the outside who are good with keeping in touch, better at keeping in touch with the industry, but also have good teaching skills because they've all been teaching with us for many, many, many years. Some of us for well over a decade. So great staff, great faculty. Curriculum updated sometimes. Yeah. So like I said before, we try to keep that thing updated as we go. A lot of hands-on best practices. There's not like a midterm exam, or there's not like, you have to like study and take an exam and sit down for like an hour, 2 hours. We don't do that here. We do project-based learning. So basically you're going to do work on projects. So even the assignments are mostly project-based. There will be a few little quizzes, but those are just mainly, refreshing quizzes, like sort of a what's the word? Sorry. So it's just going to relearn what you learned the other day before, and like a little quiz, but they don't really are worth that much. Mainly it's going to be projects. So you're going to work and build things as you go along in the course. So it's all hands-on stuff. You'll build websites, you'll build little apps, you'll build all kinds of stuff like that, little designs and whatnot. So we have a good balance. We're not just all code all the time. I mean, code is great. Everyone loves, well, not everyone, but a lot of people love the code, and that's why they sign up for these software development and web development programs, because they want to code on the computer. But we also have a good chunk of students that like the design side, and then there's also a little bit of business side as well. So we like to give a mix. Coding is important, yes. So that's the majority of the courses are code based. I'll have a little pie chart at the end that shows you the sort of the split. But we also have a good chunk that deals with user interface design, UX, UI, which is sort of how we interact with our websites, right? Sort of like the sort of literally the visual layout. We have some graphic design courses and sort of in relation to web design. So graphic design in relation to web design courses, and UX, UI courses as well. And we also have some courses on sort of business practices in regards to web development. So we want to give you sort of a more well-rounded education where we focus a lot on the code, but we still give you stuff on UX, stuff on UI, stuff on design, and stuff on business practices of web development. So you have a more well-rounded education. And I believe anyways, that makes you more valuable than just knowing code, but you don't know maybe how to communicate with stakeholders or communicate ideas to stakeholders, or sit in a business meeting and communicate what can and can't, what is and is not possible to stakeholders who may not be familiar with that concept. So those are valuable skills that employers definitely appreciate, as opposed to just pure coding and whatnot. Challenging supervised labs. Like I said, there's a lot of labs. So all the labs are supervised. So you're never left alone between Monday and Friday. So there's always going to be an instructor in the class with you. There are lots of lab times and lab days throughout the program, sprinkled out, but also a lot of free afternoons as well, which will always have an instructor there for you to help you along the way. And we do have a lot of collaborative projects. So that will be working in teams and whatnot, because in web development and a lot of software development, you're not working solo. You're usually working with, teams of people. So we want to give you lots of practice with how you write code and build websites as part of a team, not just a person solo working by themselves, which can happen, but doesn't happen very often, not nowadays, with the complexity of websites being what they are. They're just too complex almost to do for most websites to be done by one person. Smaller websites, like really small, maybe, but most larger mid-sized websites need a team of people to be built. So at the end of all this, so our main goal, like I said earlier, is basically to give you the skills needed to start a career as a front-end web developer. Basically a junior front-end developer, maybe a prior software experience, maybe a mid-level. It all depends on your prior work experience. But a front-end developer to give you those skills that you can go then and start applying for work. And by the end of it, you'll have a nice portfolio you can use to help sell yourself to get a job and whatnot. Or you can, like I said, you can go and take other stuff if you want to learn more. The amount of knowledge in web development, there's front end, there's back end, there's also software development in general. You could just go on and on, years and years learning a lot of this stuff. But we'll give you the core skills that you need to be a junior front end developer on there. All right. So program curriculum. So like I said, 27 weeks. It goes Monday to Friday, 9:30. Oh, there's a question. I'm going to save that. I'm going to save that to the end. I'll get sucked into. I'm going to break my own rule. So I'll save that for the end. There's a question I just saw in the chat, so I'll just keep my mouth shut and save it. Okay. So 13 courses in total. You can see that on the website. We have, this is kind of what I've broken them down in. This isn't anything official, but it's sort of my brain, how I've broken this down. We have coding courses, which is basically learn the languages of the web. We have design courses, which learn design theory, UX, UI design and theory in regards to web design, mainly focused on that. And then we have business courses, which are sort of the business processes of managing web projects, basically. Also a little bit of marketing and marketing yourself and building a portfolio, that kind of stuff as well. So our coding courses here, we have Web Dev 1. That's basically our introduction to web development in general. It's kind of a bit of a catch-all, but we do things like, obviously, the core languages you may or may not have heard of, HTML and CSS. And HTML in general is the text, but also the images. And then CSS is like the colors and the layout and stuff like that. Those are the two foundational languages. So we'll do that there. Tiny microscopic dash of JavaScript, maybe just a little bit for a little bit of interaction that you might have to do, but basically those are the two main languages. But then we'll also do things like get a little more knowledge in things like version control, which is Git, which if I say these names like Git and version control, don't worry if you don't know this stuff. That stuff we will teach you, but these are like technologies that you'll learn. So version control, you learn about web hosting, domains, a little bit of servers, how the sort of the process of how a website, gets built and published on the web so you can see it in a browser, how that all system works, introducing you to the code editors and all that kind of wonderful stuff. Sort of getting you up and running. So it's a sort of introductory course, but, HTML and CSS introduction for those. Web scripting 1 is our introduction to JavaScript. So JavaScript is huge nowadays. It gets more and more popular. We'll see. Maybe it's peaked. I don't know, but it seems to grow and grow and grow. I'm wondering if eventually we'll hit a wall where we've got so much JavaScript that it's getting too weighty, but that's a story for another day. But definitely an important language. That's going to introduce JavaScript, which is sort of the programming language of front-end web development. So anything sort of interactive, like validating forms, or maybe doing some animation that can't be handled by CSS, or logging someone in on the front end, like maybe doing a sign up on the front end, not the back end. That's going to be handled by JavaScript. And then, all kinds of those. So introduction to programming, and also a little introduction to programming too. So because a lot of you will be new to scripting and programming in general, we'll also introduce things like what are general computer programming concepts like loops and variables and arrays and objects and classes, that kind of stuff. And again, if all those words mean nothing to you, that's okay. We're going to teach you that stuff when you get there. Web Dev 2 kind of builds on Web Dev 1. We kind of do some more Git stuff and do some sort of advanced CSS technologies, which you just didn't have room to fit into Web Dev 1 because Web Dev 1 is actually quite action-packed, so it was already jammed up. So we kind of had to break it up to 2 courses. So that one sort of a spillover for things that just don't fit into Web Dev 1. But we'll also it's also quite a bit of projects in that one. So there we do some team projects and you work as a part of a team and you build out some designs, and that'll give you experience working with GitHub as part of a collaborative coding environment. So sharing code amongst teammates and whatnot. So that's kind of a fun one. That's the one that I'll probably teach if you do take it, depending on the intake, probably will be me, but there you go. It's my little baby. So I have fun with that one. Web scripting 2, this one, 2 and 3. So 2 is, they kind of they'll run in different orders depending on the availability of the instructors. So 2 and 3 can be run in either order, but basically 2 is our small dash into the back end. So we'll go into PHP, which is a backend language, which runs on the server. It's an old language. It's not as cool as some of the cool kid languages, but it's definitely still one of the most widely used languages on the web. So it's one of those silent but steady languages that are just everyone uses, but it's not like as cool as React or something like that, but it's still steady Eddie. So that's their backend language. We'll get into a little bit about databases, serving information, cookies and sessions and general backend coding and whatnot, that kind of stuff. That'll be handled with the FWD 2400 web scripting 2. And then web scripting 3, whereas web scripting 2 is kind of the back end, web scripting 3 is more of the interactive front end. So it's called technically frameworks, I guess we're going to get into. So we will use the React framework because that's right now the most popular one, but that could change, depending on the winds. But right now it's currently React. So you're going to learn React in this one. And React is just a framework that sits on top of JavaScript. And again, if you don't know what these are, don't worry, we will teach you all this stuff when you get there. So it's just a thing that sits on top of JavaScript that allows you to build interactive web apps relatively easy. I say relatively easy, but it's kind of a new concept if you're new to this, but relatively easily for the developer. So that's what we'll learn in that one, web scripting 3. And then the final sort of coding course, although the other ones still have some coding in them as well, but the sort of the pure, we're learning a new kind of language, is content management systems. And again, we give it a generic name, but generally you'll be working with the CMS WordPress, just because again, it's the most popular one out there, an oldie but a goodie, still used widely on the web. About 30% of websites, 1 in 3 or 1 in 4 websites are built using WordPress, large and small. Some small sites, some really large sites are built with WordPress. And at their core, they use PHP, they use HTML, they use CSS, they use JavaScript, and they use React. So WordPress kind of uses all those languages. They use the React, JavaScript, HTML, CSS, PHP all together to form this CMS system on there. So you'll be developing WordPress sites, not using templates or anything like that, but actually going to the core of WordPress and even using it as just as a dummy database API, spitting out of information and taking that information and building the front end with React. So all kinds of things with WordPress there, not just using, definitely not using templates at all, just taking it to the core and sort of programming and developing with it at a professional level on there. So those are our coding courses. Our design courses, there's only a few, but Web Design Fundamentals, that's pretty much what it says in the tin. So that one basically says, what are sort of the fundamentals of design in relations to websites. So font choices, color choices, basic UX layout, the kind of stuff, what kind of colors work, what kind of fonts work, why, that kind of stuff. But also introducing to some of the programs. So we'll use the Adobe suite here because that's still industry standard. Some people love Adobe, some people hate it, can't stand the Adobe tax. But irregardless, the industry still uses it by far by a large margin compared to competitors. And you don't have to buy the Adobe suite as if you are signed up at BCIT. In our program, you'll get that included as part of your tuition. So you don't have to buy that or anything like that. We'll also use some UX tools. Like they tend to change quite often, like the prototyping tools that are out nowadays. It used to be, I see you don't teach the course, but there used to be, oh no, I've forgotten. But Adobe XD was one that's fairly popular, but there's other Figma. So depending on what is the popular one of the day, that's probably something that the design teacher will teach, will touch on. So if there's a UX prototyping tool, it's probably going to be touched on in this course on here. UX fundamentals is, whereas web design fundamentals, web design process is more dealing with like the tooling of all that kind of stuff. UX fundamentals is more of the theory of user interface design, UX design. So not only, the layout of the website, like why do we have menus up here? Why do we have certain kind of layouts, but also sort of why do we organize our information in certain ways? Like, do we have a shallow or deep information hierarchy? And what information is stored in each of these pages, right? That kind of information. And also, how does the design of the website determined by who our audience is or who our users are, right? So if our website is being directed to retired seniors living in Alberta, is that design going to look different from, say, 20-somethings, living on Vancouver Island? I don't know, right? So that's ideas around that. How does our audience determine the layout, the information we to present on our websites? So those kind of theories on there. So it's a little bit of a theory-based course, but definitely a very important skill to know and understand. If you understand like how audiences affect how we organize our information on the web and how we design things on the web, that gives you a good leg up against somebody who just knows how to code and whatnot. So very important. Web design process, that kind of builds on web design fundamentals, but that sort of goes through the process. So once we figure out who our audience is, once we figure out who our users are, once we figure out sort of the general idea of what we want, what is the process from there? So do we start with like a stick man, and then we go to like maybe a more fleshed out mockup to a full fidelity mockup to the coding, and what are the tooling and steps involved in that process? So that's what that course is about on there. So those are our design courses. And then we have our business courses, but these have a lot of a coding component in them as well. So some of these as well, but I've put them under the business category. But managing web projects, this is purely like it says in the tin, basically, how do you manage a web project? How do you project, if you've ever taken a project management course, well, things like waterfall or those kind of theories. How does that all work, and how do we deal with timing and budgets and whatnot and that kind of stuff? So how do we manage medium to large scale web projects? What are the tools we may use around that? Online stores gets into coding this a little bit as well. This is e-commerce, so a little bit of coding on e-commerce, some Shopify stuff, rules around that, taxes and all that kind of wonderful stuff. That's sort of that one there. So it gets into business a little bit in regards to like taxes and rules and laws and that kind of stuff on there. Web portfolio, that's about sort of marketing yourself. So as a front-end web developer, some other software development jobs, a portfolio may be less important, although I bet you employers may go to your GitHub account and see what is this person built. But in front-end web development, it's a little more important to show you sort of what kind of websites you've built, because you can kind of see what you build, because, you know, as a front-end developer, you can see the code because you're outputting to the browser. So that's often the more important component, is having a portfolio. So how do we create a portfolio? How do we design it? What information do we present on that? And that kind of, how do we market ourselves that way? And you'll actually build a portfolio website and host it at the end of that course there. And then the capstone project is where you work on an internal large scale website as part of a team. You kind of put all this together, all your languages, you know, and you work on a team on an internal website, with projects generated from the instructors. And you'll build that out over about 4 or 5 weeks, building a sort of large scale project, which you can then put on your portfolio on there. So we put that under business just because you're dealing with a lot of project management. You have to sort of manage your time. You have to manage the project, even as part of a team, depending, you have to determine whose roles is what in what team, that kind of stuff. But then also doing a lot of code and whatnot. So it kind of puts it all together. And that's why it's at the end. So that's sort of the high level overview of all the 13 courses. I have more outlines here, but again, you can get these outlines. These are sort of Coles Notes versions of the official outlines on the BCIT website, but I won't go through these slides here because I've just talked about them. But if you want a copy of these slides, you can email Bell and I'll gladly send them to him and he can send them to you on there. So I'm just going to breeze through these on there because it's just pretty much a summary of what I just talked about over there. So I'll just go through all these here with portfolio. This last slide, that gives you an idea here. So 50% of your time on coding. So all these other languages here. There's a couple others there. There's SAS, which is a CSS preprocessor. You'll get exposure depending on, sometimes we have a project course in Web Dev 2 where students can pick technology. So you might get exposure to things like, you might have heard if you've in the community a little bit, things like Tailwind and Markdown and other stuff. But those are sort of on the edges on there. So some people like them, some people don't. So, but generally we have this project course Web Dev 2 where you might get exposure to those languages. But there's a whole alphabet soup of languages in front-end web development. But these are the core language that you'll definitely learn. And then there are project business skills, 30%, and design about 20%. That's roughly, I wouldn't say that's 100% accurate, but it's pretty close on there to give you a rough idea of like where I'm going to spend my time doing what on there. All right, 208. Okay. Admissions and entry requirements. So I'm going to do my best here. Usually sometimes I have to go to Bal for help a little bit, but I will do my best here. So it's a first come, first serve program. So that means if you meet the minimum entry, if Sally applied before Joe and there's only one spot left, then Sally gets the spot as long as Sally met all the minimum requirements, and Joe will be put on the waiting list. That's kind of how it works on here. So there's an application fee of $90 or $154 if you're international, $90 if you're a resident of Canada or citizen of Canada on there. There's a simple pre-entry form. It's very basic form, very simple, a few questions, not much. And then you just fill that out and you email it to the address that Bal put on the chat, but it's right here, this tpp@bcit.ca one on there. And he'll get that. And an English requirement, they've recently made it simpler to qualify for this. So you can look at these things here. English Studies 12, which is, I guess, the BCIT high school equivalent course, or English First Peoples 12, or 3 credits from a post-secondary English or humanities or social sciences course from a recognized institute. And again, if you're not sure if your institute's recognized, you could again email Bal, say, listen, I went to XYZ school in XYZ country or whatever, or province or whatever, and said, does this qualify? And I took these courses and whatever. And this is only if you didn't take these ones, right? So if, I don't know if you're from a non-English speaking country, but you took several credits at a post-secondary And then, yeah, so you can just ask Bell if that's should qualify. And there's a whole bunch of alphabet soups of English language requirements on here on this website. Again, Bal is the expert on here. So if you have like, I'm not sure if I qualify English wise, you can go to this website. I'll put this in here too. You can go to this website or you can email Bal again and say, I did the X, Y, and Z. Does this qualify for my English? And but as you can see, there's there's even Duolingo here on here. I think that's a new one, but there's all kinds of tests here. And as a native English speaker, I fortunately never had to take these tests because I know some of them are quite difficult on here, but there you go. Hopefully I said everything right there. If I didn't, Val, let me know. Apply online. So hopefully there should be a big button here. We do have spots available right now for the April intake, which starts about a month from now. So there's spots available in there. Did I lose my spot there? I lost my spot. Oh no, I lost my spot. Oh no, here it is. Where's the button to apply? I can't remember where it is.
Just under entrance requirements.
Thank you. Oh, cost and supplies here? Oh,
no,
here.
entrance requirements.
Okay, here we go.
And then on the bottom, it should be
on the
there.
bottom, yeah. Which they may change. I think they were going to change the website, but I'm not sure. But for now, it's here.
For now, it's here.
Yeah, the apply now button, and you click that one. And yeah, May intake is no longer happening, but the April one is still taking applications. So that starts in a month. If you want to start right away, that's a good one to sign up for. It's over the summer, so that's that's usually a fun one because the school is relatively emptier. So you kind of have the campus to yourselves. There'll be a few other courses, but generally it'll be a lot emptier. So you kind of be you and a few other courses, so you can hang out on the lounges and you get the place, run the place there over the summer. So it's kind of a fun one there. Yeah, so you can apply through that. How much does all this cost? So approximately there's, plus or minus $100 here, whatever, but approximately $8,000 for domestic, $9,700 for international. That includes everything. There are no textbooks, so there won't be like $8,000 plus another $1,000 in textbooks. The only other equipment, I'll talk about that in a second. There's one other thing, which is basically a computer you'll need, but nothing much more than that. So $8,000 or $9,700, depending on where you're from. That includes your Adobe CC, Creative Cloud. That includes O'Reilly Online Learning, which is basically a library of O'Reilly programming books or other kind of books that O'Reilly publishes. You get access to those. LinkedIn Learning video tutorial subscription that comes with the BCIT library, so that's good. You might get that through your public library already, but still, it's another benefit. Office 365, which we don't use officially in the program, but if you have to do a presentation or make a spreadsheet for project management planning purposes, it's there for you if you want to. A lot of students use Google Docs, but at least you have access to free Microsoft Office, so that's part of your tuition as well. Student Association Health and Dental Plan, which is standard sort of employee-like health and prescription drugs and a little bit of eyeglasses and dental stuff plan there, which is included in your tuition. And then the UPass, which is $46 a month, which every student has to pay for unless you live outside the lower mainland, outside of the TransLink service area. So if you're outside of that area, then you can get exempt. But if you're not outside that area, you have to pay for it on there. Okay. So I said there wasn't many additional expenses, but there are just a couple of small ones, not much though. So you will have to purchase a domain. Now, don't worry, we'll teach you how to do that. Once you take the program, then we'll purchase the domain. But of course, we'll show you how that works and how to do that. But it is an extra expense. So a domain is like BCIT is a domain, right? michaelwhite.ca is a domain. So like Google is a domain. So that's a domain. So you're going to purchase one of those. It doesn't cost very much. You basically license the name for a year, and it costs anywhere from $5 to $30 for the years. You need a credit card for that. So that'd be one extra fee there. And then you'll need basic web hosting for a few months. We'll give you, depending, until the deal runs out. For now, we get free web hosting for about 3 months at a company, but that could end that deal anytime. But for at least most of the year or most of the intake, you'll have to pay for a little bit of web hosting, which isn't that much. Anywhere from $70 to $140 will be the cost to you for that. And then after the program ends, you can cancel all this. You can cancel your domain. You can cancel your web hosting and be done with it. Or if maybe you want your website on there forever, and you can keep going. But those are the two extra costs outside the tuition that you'll have to pay, and those just require a credit card. So add the two up, maybe $200 max, right? Extra on top of there. Computer. So, of course, obviously, if you're in person, or online, taking the online version or the in-person version. You'll need a computer. We do have computers in the BCIT lab, so if your computer is broken or doesn't work, you can use those. But think of those as backups. Don't rely on those. They're more of like backup computers in the lab. So if your computer is broken or whatever, or you need a second monitor, you can plug into the computers in the lab as a second monitor, excuse me, on there. But if you are going to get a computer, obviously, you probably have a computer. You're here, you're logged in, so I'm assuming you have a computer. But if you want to get a new one for the course, we recommend something 2020 or newer, Core 5 or better processor, 16 gigs of RAM, 512 SSD at the minimum. Windows or Mac is fine. We have had some students do Linux. That could be a bit of a pain, but technically it's doable. But ideally for the Adobe suite, you want a Mac or Windows computer, but either operating system is fine. About half of our instructors use Mac, half of them use Windows, and that's pretty much the reality in web development space, front-end web development space. Some development places will use Mac, some places will use Windows. It's kind of and that's the beauty of the web. It works at any computer. You're not stuck to one type of computer. If you have a gaming laptop, that works good. I generally recommend laptops over desktops because you can take the laptop anywhere. You can, obviously, if you're in person, you have to be a laptop because you have to take it to school every day. So ideally a laptop there. Whereas if you take the online, we do a desktop, you're kind of bolted to your desk on there, which if that doesn't bother you for the online version, then that's fine. But I usually recommend a laptop if you're wondering which one should I get of the two. Yeah, Mac or Windows, MacBook Pro or Air from 2020 or newer is good. That should be fine. Yeah, Airs, the new Airs are fine. As long as you want to max out your RAM. So definitely stay away from the minimum RAM. Get as much RAM as you get. 16 gigs is probably fine. 32 is amazing, but expensive. So there you go. Stick with known brands and Windows laptops. So something new, try to stay away from a brand you never heard of, but some sort of known brand, and the Lenovo, Dells, or the gaming brands, the popular gaming brands would usually be fine on there. And if you're going to if you have a lower budget, then, it's better to get a known, well-known brand, stronger used laptop versus a very unknown brand, very cheap new laptop. So if you have a limited budget and it only allows you to get a certain amount of dollars, look at the used market for a couple years old. Look for like a high-end used laptop from a couple years ago. They usually give you a better performance versus a very cheap modern computer. That would be my advice to you if you have a limited budget. Program dates. So like I said, we have a spring intake starting next month. We have a few spots available to that one. So if you're interested in that one, definitely let us know. Send Bal an email and we'll get you signed up for that one. That window is open now. So if you click the apply now, if you click that apply now button, that's the one you'd be applying for. Okay, because that window, that won't allow you to apply for the fall one just yet. The fall ones don't open up until May-ish on there. Okay, so if you click apply now, you'll be going to the April one, just so you know that on there. So that's that. What's the official? I think it's April 22nd, I think is the start date of that one officially. April, yeah, 22nd, I believe is the start date for that. And then we have in-person. So this is in person. That means you have to go to campus, downtown campus. We have a fall intake in September, which is in person, downtown campus. So that one starts, application open May 23rd. That starts late September 20th, around there, roughly in that range. And then we have an October one, which starts, which is an online one, which that opens on the same day. So if you wait till May 23rd, you can apply for in-person or online. The difference between the two is only the delivery format. So you learn all the same stuff. The projects are generally the same. The assignments are generally the same. The learning outcomes are the same. You learn the same skills. In fact, sometimes we have the online intake come join us downtown as optional activities, as fun activities, as optional. Not very often because we don't want to, if you live in Kelowna or somewhere in the interior and you can't come to BC, we don't make those very frequent because that's not fair to you who can't come down, right? So, but occasionally you do, we'll bring them down for like 1 or 2 events a year that you can come into person. But the outcomes are the same. The difference is just the delivery. So instead of coming to class every day, physical location, it's broadcast out over the interwebs through a video conferencing application. And then you log in and take the lectures that way on there. And I should say the program goes 9:30 to 4 each day. Doesn't mean you're listening to people talk for 6 hours. That would be probably insane. But generally you'll learn some new stuff. Generally, not all the time, but generally learn some new stuff in the morning. There'll be some interactive activities there, some review exercises, whatnot. And there'll be some open lab in the afternoon, which you can work on assignments and projects. And that'll be sort of free time, but it's supervised. So there's always going to be an instructor there to help you out if you get stuck. That's online and in person. Online, there'll be instructor on the video conference. In person, there'll be instructor in the lab to help you where you need help with on there. financial aid. So it is a, public institute official certificate program. So you can take that to the bank and get, student loan financing for all that kind of stuff. RSP financing that would qualify for. If you're in the Work BC or WorkSafe BC thing, that's generally qualifies for. We always have a few students that come through those programs. If you're in one of those programs, you want to talk to your caseworker, whoever, get that ball rolling earlier than later, because it's sometimes a little bit of paperwork to get that through. But Bal's familiar with that stuff as well. So if you have questions around that, you can generally email Bal and he'll sort of help you with that process too. Yeah, and also this BCIT FinAid website you can go to for details there. So bcit.ca FinAid and studentaidbc.ca as well is another one on there. So there's my sort of the sales pitch, I guess, for the program. But again, why choose us? We have an update curriculum. We keep it up to date. We have faculty coming from the outside. We have experienced faculty on the inside. No exams. You're merely building web projects of some kind. Relevant hands-on experience. So again, you're not doing like theoretical exams for the most part. You're doing, project-based learning kind of thing. Short and intensive. So you're not tied up for 2 years of your life, taking a 2-year diploma, which has its benefits, but a lot of us may not have 2 years to spare at the point of time in life that we are, right? It's a balanced education. So we have, yes, a lot of coding, a lot of technology, but also a little bit of design, a little bit of business in order to give you a well-rounded education at the end. It's a widely respected credential, been around for a long time, and it's a BCIT credential on there. So, wow. Okay. So I just rambled on for about 50 minutes. So hopefully you all survived. Thank you for staying on that long. I did say we were going to ask some questions. We have a bunch on here. I'm going to go through the Zoom chat here and try to answer them as we got a long one there from one person, which is great. Not too many. I already answered the one from that person, which was the difference between the front end and the web developer. So I'll go to the next one, which is what type of code languages we'll be learning. So I probably answered that through a thing, but I'll rehash it. Is it mostly HTML, CSS, and JavaScript? Is there any languages, Python, C++, and others? I mostly learned it. Answered it, but I'll answer it again, like when I went to the presentation. But in case you missed it, yeah, mostly. Obviously, HTML is the foundational language. CSS, a lot of JavaScript. PHP is the other guy, and then there's a lot of frameworks that sit on top of those languages. So, Sass would sit on CSS, and then React would sit on JavaScript. There's, jQuery is still hanging around from a long time ago. It sits on top of JavaScript, and then of course WordPress sits on PHP. It's actually, some people think of WordPress as almost like a framework of PHP, but whatever. So those are the core, and then there's those other frameworks that hang on top of those core languages on there. But the good thing is, even though you may not learn like all the other hundreds of languages that are out there on the web, Python's listed there, which is cool, C++. Once you learn one or two of these programming languages, especially a lot of them now, they're from the C family of languages, you'll see that, oh yeah, this conditional statement looks similar in this language to that language. And really there's maybe a few little syntax changes, but the general concept is the same. They have the general flow of information. So once you learn one or two of these languages, you can pretty much figure out the other ones as you go along relatively easily. It's kind of like learning a human language. Like once you speak one language, great. The second language is probably tough to learn, but then when you get to the third and fourth language, that's why some people are like, I can speak 5 languages. The second one's probably tough, but the third and fourth, fifth ones are probably like, oh yeah, they all kind of have the similar grammatical structure, like all those, whatever, right? Yeah, so that's that for that one. And we got a long one here, but that's okay. That's okay. I won't say, so I've been writing, I'm just going to read this question out to myself first. As we go, just give me a second. Topics are very, feel free to leave some. Okay, got it. Okay. Okay, that's okay. Is there an intention? Okay, is there an intention for a full stack course or backend course to be available at BCIT? Is there an intention for a full stack course or backend course to be available? I'm not sure if you mean like an entire. So the lady's asking, is there an intention for a full stack course or backend course to be available at BCIT? Now, if you just mean like a course, like literally one course, there's a whole bunch of them under flexible learning at BCIT. So if you just want to take like a back-end course to just flesh out your education, you'd want to take things like maybe an advanced PHP course or a Node.js course, or, I should say on the other language, we're also going to learn the terminal and Git and all those kind of stuff on the terminal as far as languages. And we're going to learn terminal and a little bit of Node commands and stuff like that, but not a lot. But if you want to learn like full-on Node and some databases, you can take those courses individually in flexible learning. I'm not sure if that's what you mean. If you mean like a full stack, entire like many month or year or 2 year long program. There are a few at BCIT that are like that. If you want to do that, there's a software system developer program, which runs once a year at BCIT, which deals more in the back end. There's the full stack web developer program, which is a more of a traditional 2 year program at BCIT, which is 2 years long. Students are generally a little bit younger coming out of high school, but they're all ages in there. That's a longer program over 2 years. So they have different audiences and different needs. So you can look at those, but definitely just one course. Just go to flexible learning and find the language you want to learn. Like they have a C. I don't have the website in front of me, but they probably have a C languages one, definitely Python. They'll have a PHP, advanced PHP. Although we learn PHP and FWD, there's probably advanced ones, and then there's databases and all kinds of stuff in flexible learning, and then those other programs I talked about. And the other question was, do you teach how to use free applications as well as suites we get for free as part of our tuition? And the person lists out VS Code, GitHub, Figma, Canva. Yes. So of course, yeah, I didn't really mention the tooling around there, but we try to pick the tools that are the most popular on there. So right now, the current popular code editor is VS Code. However, I always tell the students, like I said, encourage the instructors to tell the students that you can use whatever code editor you like, but most students just gravitate what the teachers use, and the teachers generally use VS Code, which is the most popular one in the industry being used right now. So we'll use that. That's a free tool. Yes, we'll use Git and GitHub, and there's a GitHub app, and there's a Git integrating VS Code, and there's a Git through terminal. We'll learn all that. That's all free as well. Figma, I think Michael Chow will teach that one because that's a popular one. So I believe so. Canva, I'm not as sure about, but I know he'd be familiar with it. So if you, I always thought Canva, I'd probably confuse Canva. There's Canva, the presentation one, and there's Canva. I don't know if those are two different apps, but if you bring it up to Michael Chow, he'll probably show you about it because he probably knows about it. But Adobe XD is another one, which is another popular prototyping software. Prototyping software is kind of like a in between the old school Photoshop and sort of like coding a website. It's sort of a way to prototype a website, but making it a little bit interactive. It's a little more modern design tool focused on developing designs for software applications and websites and stuff like that. So yeah, we'll learn a lot of those. Those ones tend to change. At least recently, they've been changing around. Like I think currently now, Figma's the big one now. I think that's the most popular, but Adobe XD is still fairly popular just because it's tied to Adobe. So, what is cohort learning? Yeah, there's a technical term that throws out that we as education nerds just throw out there like everyone knows. It just means that you're with the same group of students throughout the entire intake. So like maybe in I don't know, high school or universities, maybe you take, comp 50, and I would have one group of students, and you go and take like, I don't know, astrology 500 or something like that. And it would be another group of students. And then, you take math 300 to be another group of students. It's not like that. You're in the same cohort, same group of students all the way through Monday to Friday. It's the same group. That's what that means. Are portfolios advantageous when applying for this program? Portfolios? No, not when you apply for this program. Of course, when you graduate from this program and looking for a job, they are. But when you're applying for this program, no. As long as you meet the minimum qualifications, which are, as I said, that pre-assessment form, you graduate from high school at least, and you have the English requirements met, and then it's from a first come, first serve basis. So it's nice if you have a portfolio, but definitely not a requirement on there, or an advantage really per se. But definitely it's great if you have one because you could build on that one for when you graduate. What support these are great questions, by the way. Thank you for putting all these together because they're great questions. What support does BCIT have for helping you find employment after the course? So after the course, there actually is some ongoing stuff after the course. I believe BCIT SA, I believe that's ongoing even after you graduate. I'll have to confirm that, but definitely there's a job board which you have access to after you graduate. There's the Alumni Association after you graduate. Those are all available forever. But more importantly, while you're taking the program, there's a whole bunch of services available. During the program, we will have employment, sort of setting up your LinkedIn profile and how to write a resume for getting a job, and a little bit of interview skills and how to conduct yourself during a tech interview. That kind of stuff will be handled to the web portfolio course. But also there's BCIT services through the Student Association, which have career counselors and career events and job fairs all throughout the year, usually sprinkled throughout. Even if you're in the summer one, which is kind of a slow time, your summer one will bleed into the fall. So then there's a lot more events there. So you'll get a lot of those towards the end, which may be better because you'll be more experienced at that time. So there's a dedicated career counselor in the BCIT Student Association who's focused on computer graduates, computer students, and she knows how to you can book time with her one-on-one, so you can have individual one-on-one meetings with her, and she'll guide you on how to best market yourself and whatnot. So there's a lot of stuff while you're taking the program, and then of course a little bit of support afterwards. Will we have any days in the classroom, or is it strictly online for the online program? Yeah, no. So we make it just because for the sake of students who live far away, because usually in the online one we've had students as far away as Japan and Korea take this, but we have sometimes have occasional few students in Toronto and a few in the interior and a few in the lower mainland. I'm not sorry, on the island, Vancouver Island. Those people could take a ferry in, but we try not to we do not make any in-person events or in-person classes mandatory in any way, just because it's not fair to the people who live far away per se. But we do have optional fun events throughout the year where online students can come in, and usually because the two intakes, the online and person, run in parallel, we usually bring the two together and they can meet each other, and it's kind of a lot of fun. So we have optional events, but nothing mandatory. So online one is strictly online, and in-person is strictly in person. Although with the in-person one, if we get although over summer, where it wouldn't happen, if towards the end, maybe you get a snow day, then we would run that in person. Or maybe, God forbidding, there's some kind of other health event and we can't go to campus, and we'd run like a day or two in person or something like that. So we have that ability to switch if something happens, so we can do that. But in general, it's in person, and online is online. What are some examples of capstone projects have previous students created? That's a great question. And you know what I could do? I don't have it on hand. I don't have websites on hand, but if you send Val an email saying, "Hey, Val, I asked this question about what are some examples of capstone projects she has created," Val can email me that, and I can send you a bunch of URLs that will have which you can look at the websites. I just don't have them on hand. I don't want to spend time finding them, but there'll be a lot of like travel websites. There'll be restaurants, healthcare facilities types of websites with your booking appointments and whatnot. Hair salons, sort of medium small business websites, and then gyms and stuff. So we don't want to make it like the next Amazon, because that's just too much of a big scale project to build, over 5 weeks to build that. It'd be great if you did have the time, but you don't have a team of 50 developers to work with. You have 4 students who are relatively new. So we have to keep the projects at a scope that is manageable, that you can build in 5 weeks. And so they're generally medium-sized websites that you'll build. But if you want to see some student examples, definitely email Bal to that TPP address, and then he'll email me, and I'll get some links together and send them to you. Great question. I mean, next time I'll get some together, and that's the first time I had that asked, which is a good question. So I like that one. So are there group projects that help with developing web applications as part of a team? Absolutely. So those are like most of the projects. At the very beginning, you're going to work solo because we're trying to figure things out. You're trying to learn, and so you work a lot. You do a lot of solo projects, but quickly you'll be put into group projects relatively quickly. So a lot of them, let's say, about at least half of the major projects you do will be as part of a team. So you're going to learn relatively quickly how to work well in a team, how to manage your time, how to communicate with the team, how to share code as part of a team. How does that all work? Yeah, so you'll do a lot of teamwork in this course, because in web development and a lot of software development, you're not working solo, you're working as part of a team. Part of a team. Okay. Is Zoom or WebEx used for online classes? Actually, that's a work in progress. It was Zoom. Like right now we're on Zoom. But BCIT is ending their Zoom license. And so it's going to go to a thing called Microsoft Class, which is kind of like a Zoom, similar technology to Zoom, but it's basically focused on education. So it's a video conferencing application, which you'll log in as a student. And it's got like special educational tools that are really more important to students. I mean, so important to educators, like whiteboarding and little pen tools, which I know Zoom has as well. So it'd be like very similar to Zoom, but instead of Zoom, put a Microsoft sticker on top of it. That's just because BCIT switching, just because we use a lot of Microsoft services at BCIT on the back end staff side of things. So they just want to go all in and use that as their video conferencing application for the online one. But it'd be very similar to Zoom. It'll be free for you. You don't have to buy anything or pay for anything. It'll be free for you. We'll show you how to sign up and log in and all that kind of stuff, and download the app and whatnot. All right. So hopefully that was a good group of questions there. Hopefully there's some more. I got some more questions here. Our afternoons, afternoons are dedicated to labs, right? Are there no classes during that time? Yeah, I wouldn't say all afternoons. It will depend on the course, but in general, I'd say most afternoons are. So a lot, especially the coding classes, we don't want to spend like 6 hours of just me or whoever talking about code because your brain will just explode. So generally, just be a couple hours of new stuff, and then a few little activities in the morning, and in the afternoon will be a supervised lab where there might be a little daily lab assignment you can work on. If there's not that, then there'll be a major project you can work on, or you can work on other course stuff. Like you have homework from your web design course and you want to work on that while you're here. Absolutely. Or the nice thing about labs is they're relatively flexible. Although there's an instructor there till 4, if we all have lives outside of school. If you have a child or you have to pick someone up or you have a dentist appointment or whatever, and you got to leave early. Oh my God, I got to leave at 2 o'clock. No problem. Just tell the instructor I got to head out. Boom, where you go. Or maybe you're done for the day. Maybe you finished the daily assignment and it's 1:30, 2 o'clock. And like, I don't want to wait around till 4 with nothing to do. Then you can just sayonara, see you later. Because we're all adults here. Everyone's generally over 18. So off you go. So they're structured, like they're labs. There's a supervised, but you don't have to stay right till 4. You can leave earlier if you want to. Is there any BCIT tutors available? Yes, there are. So there are. Although over the summer, I'll have to see if over the summer there is tutors available. Definitely in the fall there will be. I'm hoping if we have enough intakes in students enrollment in the spring, April intake, then we'll have enough for dedicated tutors to our program to bring in. It all depends on the amount of students we get. If we do, then we will have dedicated tutors for our program. But if we don't, then there's the BCIT student tutors, which are generally available in the fall. But in the summer, if we don't have tutors, then I'll make sure that there are always teachers who can obviously help you as you go along through this program. Actually, if you start in April, there'll be tutors available because they'll go all the way till May or June. So for the first couple of months, usually you need tutors. If you need tutors help at all, they'll be in the beginning because that's when you're struggling the most. By the time you get to the mid-level of the program, you're kind of mostly relatively comfortable with the stuff. Usually the beginning is where people struggle, if you struggle at all on there. But if you take the fall ones, more than likely you're going to have dedicated because the fall ones are generally more larger enrollments, so they have larger budgets, so we can bring in dedicated tutors just focus on our program. Then they'll probably, more than likely, no guarantees, but more than likely have dedicated tutors for those. The spring one, hopefully we do. Yeah, but even if we don't, there's general BCIT tutors who are focused on computer programs, not specific ours, but they may do all the languages, and they're usually students from CIT or 3-year programs that come in and do all the HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, as well as Python and other stuff. So they know all the stuff. They can help you with that. Currently deciding if I want to apply into the April term or September term. Okay. Considering how fast, intense pace this program is, how detrimental is it if you miss a day or 2 class in terms of keeping up? Will you be able to catch up with class information online, or do you recommend I just go in a term where I can play around the program and not miss any days? Okay, great question. So how many days can I miss? Now, yes, it is short duration. It is 6-7 months. So obviously if you miss 2 weeks, yeah, it's getting tough, right? You're going to be a hard time. We've had students, have medical issues, and they've missed a week, they missed 10 days. But if we're aware of it, like we had students who they had to go to a wedding, like, their brother's getting married and they just can't, they can't not show up to your brother's wedding, and they live in wherever, thousands of kilometers away, and they have to fly there and fly back. So they may have to miss 5 days or whatever. We can make that work. Generally, as long as we know ahead of time that, yes, you're going to be away for a few days, we'll get you prepared. We'll tell you how to keep up, and you can generally do it. And I know that because other students have done it. Obviously it'll be a little more work on your time because you have to keep caught up, but it's definitely doable. If you miss a day or 2 here and there, that's usually not a problem. People get sick, people have doctor's appointments, people have life. That just happens. Obviously, we encourage you to show up as many days, almost every day as possible. But if you miss a day or 2, you can do that. So if you're deciding between April and September, if you think you're going to be away for a week or up to 5 or 7 days, maybe that's probably okay. If you think maybe more than, but even then, even September, I don't know if the days, maybe you need to be away in September. So in that case, there you go. But definitely, as far as just missing a few days, if you want to get started earlier, then take the April one on there. Thank you for okay, great. You're welcome. No, that's okay. Those are great questions. I really appreciate the questions. This is the person that asked all the questions, which was really great. Where do I get my BCIT ID? I think, Val, I think they just get it when they apply, right? Or how does that work? If you never had a BCIT course before, like that, they get it automatically. You guys have been saying,
Yeah, they can actually go online. I'll put the link in the chat room.
okay, yeah, but I'll give you a link where you can probably get a free BCIT ID just, and then you get an ID, and then, I got mine like gazillion years ago. So our tutor's free. So any BCIT tutor is free. Yes. So whether it's a dedicated FWD one that we may or may not have, that would be free. And if it's a student tutor at BCIT, that is free as well. Is there likely to be time to work part-time job other than the course realistically? Yes. So yeah, we've had students, obviously, the world is expensive right now. Everyone's got high rent and food and got to eat and pay the bills and all that kind of wonderful stuff. So yes, you can do a part-time job and take this course at the same time. Obviously, it's more work. I would say up to 10 hours is good, 15 hours is okay, 20 hours you're hitting the limit. Beyond that, I wouldn't recommend it. Maybe you're Superman, you can do it. Maybe you're 21, you can live with 5 hours of sleep for 7 days a week. Great for you. But if you're older and maybe you can't do that, then anything over 20, I would be careful with, is what I would say there. Right. But definitely a part-time job, a few hours a week for sure. Absolutely. And if your part-time job means you have to leave at 3:30 and certain days of the week, that's generally okay too, that kind of stuff. So we're flexible in that regard. Are the credits from this program transferable to another BCIT program, for example, full stack web development? Not officially, but if you were to apply to full stack, you could always say, I took the FWD program and these are my courses. And then what would happen is the program coordinator would get in touch, or the program coordinator or the program head would get in touch with me. And we'd look at the two outlines and maybe get one or two courses credited to your full stack one. But there's nothing official, so I can't guarantee that. But generally, that's what would happen. They say, like, oh, Bobby took your program. What is the outline for this one? Oh, that matches up to ours. In that case, you could probably get credit for that. There's nothing officially signed up for that. Can I pick it up at downtown or BC at Burnaby campus? I'm not sure what your question is there. He says, can I pick it up at downtown? I'm not sure what you mean by that. Is that
He's talking about he or she is talking about the BCIT guard.
oh yeah, you can pick it up on campus. I think or they mail it to
They
you.
just have to let where they want to pick it up.
Right. Yeah, you can either have it mailed or whatever.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Part-time version of this course? No, there isn't.
No, there isn't. Yeah, that's the easy one. So no, there's not. Though you can take similar stuff with part-time courses, just it takes a little longer and you have to have sort of different mindset because you have to sort of dedicate yourself to a longer time frame. There you go. Okay, we got through a lot of questions. So yeah, an hour and 15. Hopefully I answered many of them. Does anyone have any other questions before we pack it up? How often are job fair? Well, I don't have at least several times a year. I'd say 4 to 5 times a year. I'd say like at least one a season kind of thing. So there'll probably be one in the fall, some kind. So yeah. For April term, my guess would be they might have one in like May. I don't know offhand. You could maybe go to the BCIT Student Association website. So if you Google BCIT SA, they probably have a job fair section of their website, and they may have even dates and calendars on there that you can check out and see upcoming dates. They maybe have for this term, at least you can see that. So that'd be the BCIT Student Association. And they are the ones that generally organize the job fairs. No, that's great. Thank you very much. Thank you for asking all those questions. Really appreciate it. Okay. Any other questions there, guys? All right. Well, I've recorded this. Yeah, I've recorded this. So hopefully I'll get this recording to Bal, and maybe in a couple of weeks, we will get it up on the website on there. And if you want these PowerPoints, let me know. Email Bal if you have any questions, and he'll email me if he has anything technical that he can't answer. But thank you for taking an hour and 15 minutes of your time and spending it with us. We really appreciate it. And if you apply, great. Maybe we'll see you in the future. All right. Thank you. Oh, wait, we've got last one here. Seen an intro course forgot the name. Is it a good idea to take? Intro course. You don't have to take any intro courses, but Did you have one in mind? Were you thinking of taking like a comp 1850 or one of those ones? Or sometimes some people take comp 1850. That's like an introduction to web development. But you don't have to take that. But if you're like, some students are just like, I'm really nervous, I really want to take some warm-up course, then comp 1850 is a good one, but definitely not mandatory on there. Thank you. Oh, as mentioned, we have limited seating available for April. So so we have just a few seats left in April, but if you're interested, so you'll want to apply sooner than later. Okay, anything else, guys? All right. Thank you. I'll stop the recording.